Hello and welcome to Minneapolis. I was really loud. I have a lot more energy than I thought I did. I'm Gabe Ibrahim with our Her Hoop Stats team, and they're all going to introduce themselves in just a second. But before we do that, make sure you subscribe and follow us on Twitter at Her Hoop Stats. There's going to be no bug thing because it's late here and we're trying to go hang out in the great city of Minneapolis. But everyone go across, introduce yourselves, and start with
the great cold city of
Yes,
Minneapolis.
yes.
Hi everyone, Megan Gauer here.
What's up? I'm Calvin Wetzel.
Hey, Aaron Barzilai here.
So I think the way we're doing this is just we're all going to give a take. So we're just going to give one take. We're all going to talk about it, and we're going to get in and out. We were here today. You guys went to go see all the press conferences. I went to go see where all the coaches were, and literally every coach in America is here. So I think we learned some things. I think we all have takes. We're going to start. Megan, what's your take? You start us off.
Yeah, so I think one thing we heard a lot about in the press conferences was talking about the NCAA and the push for equity in the women's tournament, and that, there's definitely been strides to improve it, don't get me wrong, but maybe we're missing the mark a little bit on what that actually means in terms of it doesn't mean that everything has to be the same as the men's tournament. It doesn't just mean that there's some pretty March Madness blankets on
I was about to say the pretty March Madness blankets though, that is dope. Equity.
Yeah, but
we're done.
Not...
We're good. We can stop now.
But it's I think Jeff Wells put it perfectly that it's not about doing everything the exact same way the men do it. It's about treating the woman fairly compared to the men. And I think that's a big point. It doesn't have to be the same. I think there's things that probably should be done differently. It's a different tournament. There's things that should be different, but it doesn't all have to be the same.
No, there's different priorities, and Calvin and I were actually. I think it's a good time to bring up our conversation that we were having about Anna Wilson and how they're going to show Russell Wilson tons from this game, and would that go the other way, right? Of if Anna was at Russell's game, would they show her? And I that's not necessarily the same thing we're talking about, but I do think of it in the same vein of well, do we have to do everything the same, or are we trying to reach different audiences, right? I like Calvin's take on this.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So everybody loves Calvin's take.
Yeah, thanks for the setup, Gabe. Well, we were talking earlier about and we're here, so we're not going to see all the halftime shows and pregame and whatever. But everyone who is, I think what you're going to see is the 101 course, the women's basketball 101 course. And they're going to say things like, well, if you haven't seen Paige Beckers play yet, now's a chance to see someone really good. But really, who among us hasn't seen Paige Beckers play yet? Why do we need to say things like that? Because it's like you said, what audience are you trying to reach? And the audience you're trying to reach with that is people who haven't watched women's basketball, which there's a place for that to bring in new fans and to reach new fans. But there's also a place for people like us who actually know the sport and follow it and have watched these players before. And I don't think there's really very much coverage, at least on a national level, for people like us.
I think that is true, but I guess I'll be the contrarian, so maybe we'll have a good podcast. We often agree a lot. I disagree because if you think about the ratings we saw, which have been great to see on television, most of the audiences for the, I believe, Sweet 16 and Elite Games were on the order of 1 to 2 million people. Last year, I believe 4.1 or so million people watched. So 2 million people have not seen Paige Beckers and are only really tuning in for the Final Four. And I think if you look at, it's Thursday night tonight. It's been a blur for everybody that covers women's basketball for the last month. And, I think there is more of the basketball 101 coverage in the men's game, at least on the main broadcast, than you might think. Right. I think there are tons of people, I personally have friends that are just getting into women's basketball. Their big takeaway from the UConn season is they would have won that game at Oregon if Oregon didn't have such a crazy court, right? They're just coming at it from such a different angle than us. I think we sometimes lose sight of the fact that we're so immersed in it, and so it is cool to get. We definitely don't get quite as many cool breakdowns. I forget who does some amazing NFL film stuff. It's one wide receiver and one defensive back on ESPN, and they do these amazing 3-minute breakdowns. That is exactly the kind of content you want. We don't get a ton of that, but I feel like they do give us some during the game. Again, we're not going to see it this weekend, and but I think so much of the audience, especially when the audience is growing, is they haven't really seen a ton of them. So maybe I'm an apologist. Maybe I'm sort of thinking about everything we do at Her Hoop Stats, and I think that we're very fortunate. A lot of people that follow. Part of the reason you're all part of the team is because you follow closely enough that you found us. But so many people in the world have not found us, and I think the same amazing. And maybe they've now heard of Paige Beckers. They might have even heard more about Sonona Prince based on last year and how she blew up than Paige Beckers, frankly. And they might not have ever seen her play.
Well, sorry if I could just jump in. You're right. There are a lot of people who haven't seen Paige Beckers, and there's definitely a need for that one-on-one coverage. I don't think that should be eliminated, but I think part of growing the game is adding on to that also the 201 and the 301.
Yes,
and so we have
with you.
all of them, because I think right now it's almost exclusively one-on-one coverage when you're talking about national media.
And I was trying to say that, so hopefully that came through. But one of the things that I thought was most about the thing I've covered that I liked the most was I'm probably the only one that watched the Field of 136 coverage show that they did on Selection Sunday. It was 10 o'clock, and I forget who was on, but it was great. And they talked about the women, they talked about the men, and it was basketball 101, but it was equal. I mean, it really literally was for both. They really did treat them the same way.
Yeah, I think we get lost a lot on coverage of the women's game on they only focus on this 1-2 storylines, but I think that's how
UConn.
Yeah, yes, UConn. Yes, I was trying to make it not about UConn, but I mean, part of it hasn't been UConn all season.
Right,
there have been other storylines this season, but I think that's how basketball is covered at that level in general. If you think about the men's tournament, right? The storylines have been the Peacocks and the fact that Carolina and Duke might play in the Final Four.
And I also think that I know I'm talking a lot, but the women's game has adapted to more than UConn, right? How much coverage does South Carolina men's basketball team get? Not a lot. South Carolina is getting a ton, just like UConn now. Same for Iowa, right? I mean, and Iowa had an amazing team last year, right, with Luka Garza, I think, was the National Player of the Year on the men's side, and I think they had probably the runner-up for Naismith on both the men and the women this year. And, the point is, ESPN hasn't ignored it all. ESPN has found those, and they'll move, they're covering Stanford. I think what it is, South Carolina is so dominant, it feels like they're in the UConn world now.
So to bring it, back to Megan's point, though, is, I think it kind of all plays into it. We're doing basketball 101 a lot more, I think, in basketball 101 a lot more in the coverage, but we're also doing it when we talk about equality. Okay, we're only thinking about it as is everything the same for the men and women? If everything's not the same, it's step back, or the women's tournament should be way different. It's no, the real answer here is it should be tailored to treating the women like they are the same level of athlete, because they are, right? So that's what we have to realize. It's not just we're not just gonna find benchmarks of we have now both teams have suites in the hotels, or whatever. The gift bags are the same. That stuff's good markers, but I'd much rather it be equal in terms of this is tailored to the men's experience and this is tailored to the women's experience. So I think it kind of all plays into that same equity discussion of are we trying to who's being appeased here? Who is being targeted with whatever the policies are for the NCAA or in media? Is are we trying to get after lowest common denominator, or are we trying to get after the best answer for the people involved? And I don't know, I think they're doing a decent job, I'd say.
Right, and I think it's it's not really about the swag bags. Yes, that's what captured all the attention, but no one, Jeff Walsh said no one cares about the gym. That was only because they were in a bubble. No one's asking for a weight room here this year, and the swag bags obviously just yes, they should be equal, they should be nice, but it doesn't actually matter. Right. It's about having access to the investment in the tournament, the access to resources, the investment broader beyond the tournament, investing in women's programs, period, on an even basis, and enforcing that as well.
And Gina brought up the point too with the swag bags and all that stuff that that stuff's cool or whatever, but that doesn't help them win or prepare to play the game. And he brought up how the women's Elite Eight ends on Monday, Final Four starts on Friday. Right. They turn around, get home, late Monday night, then turn around 24 hours, fly out here. Where the men,
and he was in Connecticut the whole time, right? Think about Stanford was playing Spokane. I forget what day that was, but you know what I'm saying, right? Some people had to travel out of the state.
Yeah, South Carolina had to go to North Carolina.
Oh, is that what it was?
Yeah,
and it's all a blur.
And I think that's a huge part of it.
Yeah, I think so.
That's a huge part of it, and just having to work around not that work around, but like, having to work with the men's schedule is interesting because I feel like they've done it in a couple different ways this year, right? Of like, we had, I think the Sweet 16, right, was the day that the Miami men played in the Sweet 16. Those games were in the morning, afternoon.
Yeah, they do a good job scheduling around it.
I thought it was good then, and then here we put the women at a disadvantage. Though it's like, well, why didn't we just put those games in the afternoon on Saturday? I don't know if that works.
Oh no, I'm happy. I think it makes a lot of sense the way it is. I mean, I think given that there are lots of big decisions, I've heard some very interesting suggestions. Right, like one, because we've also talked about. And again, contrarian, like I can't quite decide if I love using March Madness or whether I would love to figure out a way, and I don't know how we would do it, so it's probably not realistic. Yeah. And smarter people than I like the March Madness, but could we come up with our own equally well-known phrase that really just means the women's tournament? And I don't even think I should say my horrible ideas.
No.
It's like absolutely not.
Podcast comes to a screeching halt.
But the point is, it would be really nice because right now the reality is like it's cool that they're both using it. But if you go Google, if everybody listening, and I'm sure you're also on your computers too, and go Google March Madness, like you're gonna get all kinds of men's content, and like
the same thing
surprising.
happens if you Google like Miami basketball, you're gonna get the men's team.
Exactly.
It doesn't even matter that like I only ever look for women's basketball stuff, and when I go Google Miami basketball right now, it's still gonna give me the men's team.
You can even type in Miami women's basketball, and sometimes it autocorrects.
Miami men's. That is true. I know I had other points too, and I've forgotten them, so I'm gonna remember them in a minute. So I'll get back to that. What were we talking about?
I like that they alternate the Final Four games, but like. It used to be until 5 years ago, the women played Sunday, Tuesday. Why not just go back to that? Then they have the same amount of time between games.
The other So one other thing I heard, which was fascinating. I don't really know that I think about it because I think it's a good idea but the idea would be like maybe we should start the tournament essentially this weekend so that we're not competing against the men. I don't think I like that one. You should
totally adjust your schedule for it. I don't.
See, you can say that, but all kinds of sports do all kinds of adjusting in general, particularly around the NFL. So I am less averse to that myself. Again, I have some contrarian takes, perhaps in general, but because I'm really realist. Like it's a really
more contrarian as
thank you to the Elliott Park Marriott for providing us with free beer.
But it is. I mean, we're clearly not yet. But it's true. Like we're clearly not there yet in terms of equity, equality. But like. I don't know what is. It'll be interesting. Like, how will we ever know that we are, right? Like, does we have to get exactly the same TV ratings? Do we just need to get close to the TV ratings? My general thought applies to the WNBA as well, right? Like, it does not need to be exactly as big as the NBA, right? We need to invest in it and grow it as much as we can, and like, there's plenty of opportunities to do that, right? But I'm excited for like WNBA essentially being a freestanding business. The seed thing that they did was very helpful, and I think there's been a lot of talk, right, bidding out the contract for the women's tournament separately, and then suddenly there's people at the NCAA whose job is to make as much money off of women's basketball as possible. And guess what's going to happen? Those people are going to be incredibly motivated to get as much money as possible out of women's basketball. Chantel Jennings had that great article talking about stuff, and one of the things they said was having different tiers of sponsorship. Right now there's no way to sponsor the women's tournament without sponsoring the men's because it's all through the CBS contract. And so, like, all of those kinds of things. So we can just manage the business. It's not going to make as much, WNBA at that point is not going to make as much of the NBA. But that's fine. They're trying to grow it. They're not going to be having the $1 million salary or the zillions of $1 million salaries. But it's all good.
No, so by the way, this is the podcast by now. If you saw me, like, looking at the screen, if you're on YouTube, I was trying to see the time here on OBS because I was trying to figure it out. So this is just going to be the podcast we're just talking about. It's everyone else's takes. Sorry.
Great.
You won't get takes.
This is the only. I'm sorry. That's the only.
This is the only take. This is everyone has.
Let's have a parting shot.
Everyone had their own. Everyone had too many takes on this one take. Therefore, we have no more takes.
Isn't this your whole idea? This is your design.
This is my design, but I've abandoned it. I see. That's why I'm like. I think that you have to be adjustable, right? It's March. You have to be ready to change what you're doing.
It's a great halftime adjustment.
Sometimes you have to go over the screen, Westmore. I'm sorry, Wes. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm kidding.
We got to talk some actual basketball.
Yeah, we can talk
positive things. I'm not going to let us have a podcast where all
equity is important, and we are moving in the right direction. And I think the day that we will know that it is here the day that we don't feel the need to bring it up, right? And like,
Yeah.
hopefully,
Maybe that's the standard.
But maybe that, whatever. I think we all think, right?
Yeah.
The women's game is in a great place, and like Dawn said today, like now is the time to invest in women's basketball. Obviously, we all feel like that because we're all doing it.
Yeah, we're investing our time.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's Gabe,
do
let's turn around. I'm going to ask you what your hot take is.
Oh.
That's going to force us, because you want to talk, to still talk.
Yeah.
More about other takes.
So my hot take is actually a cold take that you should bring a coat to Minneapolis.
It's a literally cold take.
It's a take about cold, because it is real cold here. It's like 37 degrees, and I forgot my coat at my house.
As did Aaron.
As did I would say, you're not alone.
Yeah, nice.
Left
I
table.
feel like that was like
Left side.
number one priority when I was packing. It was like coat.
Yeah.
That's because you live further north than us in Connecticut.
But like you knew you were coming to
I did.
Minnesota.
It's April. I also knew it was April.
It was 4 a.m.
It's not April yet.
I'll accept that as an
I was
excuse.
making sure I made it to my airport plane
Yeah.
as well.
I
It was
I
a
was
rush. It was a rush. I had planned for
guess
it Monday
not
and Tuesday.
everyone gets to fly out of Bradley.
Yeah,
like
Aaron-
I do. The world's easiest airport experience.
Yeah, Aaron has kids, so I think you become like when you're a parent, like you're just way more like your kid would never forget their coat.
Let's be honest. Really, what it is usually when I travel, it's like the whole family,
Yeah.
including my wife, and she's much better about.
And she's a
asking.
Okay,
I'm
this
very
is
clear
this
on
is
that.
really my hot take: is that no married man should be allowed to travel without their wives, because it is impossible for me to figure out what to do at any time of the day.
That's
without
not my take. Let's be
This is my take. I can't like function. And I'm gonna send this to my wife, by the way. But like I can't like function. I don't forget my coat. Like I'm just like walking around aimlessly in Minnesota, getting lost. I have fun. I have a great time, but I have no idea what's happening.
Married people, right?
Yeah. Maybe it's just I'm an idiot. That could also be. So that's my take.
Cool.
Bring-
Calvin, do you have a basketball take? 'Cause we're a little non-basketball. I feel like we
Oh.
should have basketball takes on this briefly.
Yeah.
Are you changing your assessment of any of the teams based on the press conferences?
No. Well, because the press conferences didn't talk about basketball. They talked about this stuff. So
Yeah.
nothing about the press conferences
And the transfer
changed anything that I think about what's going to happen on the court.
So what's the one thing that you're sure is going to happen on the court?
I am sure that every post player in UConn Stanford is going to foul out. On both sides.
On both
That's
sides, yeah.
Fair.
The Spider-Man pointing meme of Olivia Nelson-Odota's foul rate and Cameron Brink's foul rate.
And Leah Edwards foul rate.
And
You're a betting guy. Let's make an over/under. Which big is going to have the most minutes in that game? Stanford, UConn.
Leah Edwards.
Emily Edwards? Okay.
If you're a UConn fan, I think that's what you hope for, honestly.
Yeah, no, I mean,
I think they're in trouble without either, but I think what Leah does is just a little bit different.
when so Brink has been a little bit better. A little bit. Like, she got one bad call against Texas. If not, she would have had 3 fouls. So,
That's a fair point.
it's getting a little better. I'll go with Brink on my question.
I was going to say Brink too. And are we going to put in a moment of around? It's frustrating when they take the player out with 2 fouls in the first quarter. Although I would say maybe with Cameron Brink, it's not a bad idea.
Yeah, it depends.
I don't know. Like, in a
when
game
you're
like-
on the bench, you're guarding every
Yeah.
fouls.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, I think sometimes, yes, but, like, when you know that you're going to be in a close game, do you want to risk not being able to have Cameron Brink on the floor when the game's,
Yeah.
like, 65-68 in the last minute
Yeah.
or something? I don't know. I think I would take that risk.
Just it depends if you can trust them to not pick up the third.
Yeah.
We're not there yet with Brink.
I would say no.
No.
No offense. We
She
love
loves to
Cameron Brink.
foul.
Yeah.
That's like one of her favorite activities is fouling.
Ah,
If,
that's
Lisa
fine.
Brown
I'm just kidding.
picks up her second foul.
Yeah,
who
like I
cares?
thought
They run the ball.
if one of UConn's guards picked up their second in the first, I would leave them on.
Yeah.
They know how to play through it.
I just think she's gonna play a little cleaner. Brink is, and she's been crushing it. So like I'm with
third
it.
quarter, right?
It's all going to depend
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
who's officiating and how it's officiated too.
Alright.
That's going to be a big thing.
Is UConn getting the
God.
UConn the Bridgeport whistle again? I mean, we
I
can
don't
talk
know,
about
like,
that.
I don't
The
remember it being.
Bridgeport. It was the
Bridgeport
same
not
ref that
whistle.
did the UCF game that did
Oh, was
the
it?
NC State game. So I'm hoping they're not going
It's
to.
Olivia Nelson-Ododa who had 7 fouls against.
Okay. Yeah.
Against
I think there were
State.
bad calls on
Non-whistle.
both ends.
I'm not saying, but she picked up her 7th foul in the first overtime. Lucky for her, they didn't call it. So hopefully it's a well called game. I'm assuming in a well officiated game.
We are talking about women's
I think
basketball.
I think Brink could Brink could withstand it. I hope.
Gotcha. So I'm gonna have a closing thought maybe, but so who do you got in the Stanford UConn game, Cal?
Stanford.
Megan?
Go with Stanford.
Look at that!
Clip it!
Actually,
Get in her mentions.
South Carolina Twitter needs to acknowledge, right?
really.
That, Megan,
They do,
I
that's
said the
right.
least
Well,
unbiased.
I'm
They
going to now anger South Carolina by saying I think whoever wins UConn Stanford is going to win the national
Do you
championship.
Oh.
really? That's not Where
That's
are you
odd.
on Stanford UConn?
So I'll go with Stanford. I believe they are they're 1 point favorite, right?
We have a 2. I don't know what the betting
I think
is.
the
One,
betting-
1.5,
You and
depending on
me.
the book.
I think I'll take Stanford to win and to cover.
So do you. Like you're actually betting money on it.
Well, no, I give my friends advice.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, I'm not a heater. If I tell people like Rayland, now this one's not going to happen, right? Like there's no way Stanford covers after I say that.
Especially because we all three pick them. It's like you ever watch NFL Live, every time they pick the same game,
I know.
it happens the other way.
I was
So
going to
you have
say
pick UConn.
You have to
Stanford,
pick-
but now I feel like I should pick
You
UConn.
have to pick
And
UConn.
my talking point is that Paige Beckers has gotten miraculously healthier in the 3 days of pregame, and is going to look
Well, I
even
mean,
more.
it's not miraculously healthier. Look what she did to NC State.
That's what we're saying.
But what I thought was really interesting, Becker's right. You agree, and you know better than any of the 4 of us, I think, right? She's not 100%,
No,
right?
but Paige Beckers at 90% is still better
And
than
what's
most players in
amazing,
the
right, is
country.
because she's so good and so she's so calm that she can hit those kind of
Yeah.
tough shots without being like signature moment crazy plays that we were used to, I guess, more from last year. So that would be my argument. Becker's gonna set a record for Final Four scoring. No, I don't know. And it's not gonna be a high scoring game.
I mean, she got like miraculously healthier between the 5-minute mark of the fourth quarter and the
Exactly.
2-minute mark of the fourth quarter, and then she
Exactly.
went on. She scored 17 points.
Yeah.
So I think it's not impossible. She's
No.
even she's gained superhuman strength at this point. Between the NC State game and now.
Gonna be in the next Marvel.
We all picked Stanford. I'll go with. I think the path for UConn to win, or at least if we want to do that, is turn Stanford over.
Yeah.
20 turnovers against Texas. UConn's gonna have more offense to respond to that than Texas did. That was a close game. If
Yeah.
they can turn them over 20 times, UConn could win that game.
One of my favorite stats that our newsletter readers got today is that this year and last in the tournament, there have been 4 games won by a team that has lost the turnover battle by, I think, 10 or more. And Stanford has won 3 of them. The championship against Arizona last year, 2 this.
Wow.
So, and of everyone aside, I forget the other one's Utah, Arkansas. So I guess was that I forget who won the game. But
Utah.
beyond those 4 games, I believe the next up is 3, right? There was no one who's in the middle there. So it's remarkable how they're able to overcome that. So it could turn
I
out
don't
that you're
know that
right.
they can overcome that against UConn. UConn only had 8 turnovers in double overtime game against NC State.
Well, and UConn, of the teams that are left, the one that should hypothetically be the most prepared for Stanford is UConn, because they also run a lot of the chin sets, a lot of
Very
the.
similar.
So-
Though Gino said he
Gino-
did not like that today. He's like, I'd rather play someone that's totally different.
Really?
Yeah.
That's
They
interesting.
practiced against it the whole time or something. So they're totally familiar.
But then a wrinkle tosses you out.
I guess
All right,
that's true.
Aaron,
South Carolina.
give us
Do
a
you
take on South Carolina and Louisville.
Well, my biggest take is that I would like to know what Aaliyah Boston's mantle looks like at home. How much away did she reinforce it? She got so much hardware.
She needs a new one
this week. I'm hoping she's going to send out a picture.
It's a room, man.
Yeah, it's a room.
Yeah,
The trophy room.
Exactly. Yeah, right. So, I mean, to me, Aaliyah Boston's going to be amazing. Are we going to see a 80-point game out of South Carolina, or what was it, a
Absolutely
49?
Louisville has a
49.
really good defense. If they score 80 points, I don't know what went
It would
wrong.
take about
Yeah,
5
exactly.
overs.
Right? And so, I think as a result, they're going to keep it close. I think that Louisville's won so many games, I said it about NC State, and it turned out to be wrong, although it was an overtime situation. So can Louisville hang around? Haley Van Lith hit some clutch shots, and ultimately, I think our model favors them by 6, and
6
it's
points,
hard to imagine them losing, but they lost 2 games this season, so they certainly could. I think everybody talks like they're a juggernaut, and they don't realize that there are many, many outcomes, many, multiverses where they lose.
The blueprint is there. The blueprint is there. Thank you to the Miami Hurricanes. I know not every team is as good defensively as the Miami Hurricanes, or as gritty or as tough. But there's the blueprint, right? Like you leave the shooters, you hope it works out. For UNC, that didn't really work out because South Carolina hit their threes early. So that's like I brought this up on the last podcast. Like it's gonna be we're gonna know in the first 5 minutes how the offense is gonna have to work for South Carolina, and it's just a matter of like can Louisville hit enough shots. But I don't know. I obviously I'm gonna go with South Carolina, but I see there is the path for Louisville to win.
Agreed.
I think I keep thinking about Liz Dixon because she's big enough to hang with these bigs for South Carolina. She hasn't played. I'm not sure how much she played. She didn't play that much against
I don't think so.
In the Elite Eight. I don't think she's played that much in this tournament so far, but she's had big moments in the past for this team, and she certainly is capable. So if she's going to need to be out there because certainly like Olivia Cochrana's going to get in foul trouble,
Mm-hmm.
Emily Angsler's going to get in foul trouble. That's just what happens when you play South Carolina. But if she can hold up in her minutes, I think they have a pretty good chance. And then let's be make or miss. Like who's better, Destiny Henderson or Haley Van Lith? Right? Who's better, Zach or Chelsea Hall? I mean, not better. You know what I'm saying? Like better in this game.
Yeah.
What is it? At Gabe Ibrahim.
At Gabe Ibrahim.
I was like, you're right.
South Carolina fans know that.
Yeah.
Know the ad. I hear from them.
Enough. Yeah. No, I am also gonna pick South Carolina in this, but I don't think Aaliyah Boston can beat Louisville by herself. And if South Carolina's guards do not make if Zia Cook and Destiny Henderson don't score an offense and not just score, but they can't go like 5 for 20 combined because that happens fairly regularly with the South Carolina team. They have to be better than that to win this game.
So you're all picking South Carolina.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
All right.
You're last.
Gamecock Twitter. Going with Louisville.
All right.
Asking for trouble.
What's your Cash App?
Yeah, drop the cash app. Request.
Yeah.
What were you going to say, Cal?
Well, you brought up the defensive, the blueprint and everything, and I think, number one, Jeff Wall's as good as anyone at coming up with those defensive blueprints, and his game planning is just like next level. And number two, like when you look at it, obviously a lot of teams have tried this blueprint and failed. When you look at the last game against Creighton, they left shooters with miles of space, and it didn't matter because Creighton's full of 6-foot flat people, and South Carolina's full of 6'5" people, and so they could just get the ball inside.
Creighton, we love you. We love you.
No
love
shade,
Creighton. Tatum Rambow, we love you. But yes, continue.
Morgan Molly.
Yeah,
Louisville has the personnel though to do it. They have the talent because it doesn't matter how good your game plan is if you're not big enough and talented enough. Sorry, Creighton, but Louisville has the personnel and the talent to do it if the game plan is good enough. And like you said, like Haley Van Lith, she's scored 20 points in every tournament game. She's on one right now. If she shows up like that, I think Louisville can win this game.
Angsler's gonna have to hit some shots too. She's gonna have to make some shots, and she's done it sporadically, and she's capable of it. But she's gonna have to hit some shots
or
too.
some steals. She's been setting records.
But she, if when South Carolina can just pin their, it's not. I know it's a football term, but pin their ears back and essentially just fly around on defense and look for blocks and get rebounds. You need that spacing, and if she's not, they're not gonna. I think they're gonna come out and not respect her, so they can get Saxton or whoever is her assignment just closer to the rim. So if she hits some shots, especially early, I think that'll really open it up for Louisville.
I think you're right. I think that one thing people forget. One thing that I like: the 4 teams in the Final Four this year are number 1, 2, 4, and 5 in our Her Hoop Stats rating. We sort of talk about Louisville, and they haven't quite been in the class of the other really. NC State, I would actually say Stanford and South Carolina all season. But we forget they've been right up there all season. They're a 1 seed for a reason. And the gap, when you get to this level, the gap is just not that much. It's talented, South Carolina favored by far, but it's still quite possible, which is why we're excited to watch.
Yes.
And you can't knock a team like Louisville for losing to a team like Miami. It's just when you play these really great teams. That's right, baby. 2 Miami mentions on the Final Four podcast. I had to get him in. Nice. No, yeah, I think it's gonna be a great game. I think both games are gonna be awesome.
Yeah.
Jeff Walls reminded us today that now that we have equity, apparently, in the tournaments, that both sides, men's and women's, have 4 in the Final Four.
Yeah.
So the women's side also has a 4th team in Louisville. He made sure to let us know.
I think we might have more than equity in terms of quotable coaches. I'm not sure. I've been monitoring the men's coach, but Jeff Walls is unbelievable.
Right.
His quote today about how what was the exact way it went? It was something about, people think the grass is always greener when he's talking about the
Oh,
transfer
yeah.
portal, but it's because it's fertilized with bull.
Yeah.
I guess maybe that's a line he uses regularly. It was the first time I'd heard it. It's hilarious, I thought.
Which is really funny, too, because, like, a big player on his team is a transfer from Syracuse. But we digress. Because I think the games are going to be great, and I think that'll do it for us.
Well, I want to leave my hot take. No?
Would you not do your hot take?
No, my hot take is that I was going to say at
Oh.
the beginning, it is how amazing it is to be here
Oh,
together with people. It's great to be with the four of you the rest of the Her Hoop Stats team, but also just great to be walking around Minneapolis, seeing people in like the media workroom, the coaches. Her Hoop Stats, we covered the Columbus in 2018 and Tampa 2019 Final Four. Did not, obviously, there was no 2020. And while there was, the rules were kind of funky, and so none of us covered in person 2021. So it just feels like kind of being back in the world. It's just so great to see not just the folks on our team, people that I've never actually seen in 3D. Yes. Right. But also all of our friends across the women's basketball community. All the great works happening, just women's sports, the Athletic, the Next, you name it. There's so many more. I apologize that I'm going to bore everybody. We've gone way long anyhow. But it's just been really great to see everyone in person. For me, at least, it just feels like, hey, the world's not really back to normal, but it's just great to be a part of it.
To recap, your hot take is interacting with other humans is good.
Did you say hot take or take?
It's just a take.
That's my take. That's my biggest takeaway from the whole weekend.
It's
Is just how great it is to be in a place with everybody.
Wait, is take short for takeaway? Is that what that comes from?
Oh my gosh!
I just cracked the code, right?
Why don't you ask your wife?
I know. Yeah. It was like when I found out scram and with the defensive scram, it actually means scramble. I never knew that, and just wait. Maybe we just figured it out. I'll ask Emily. She has all the answers. And my code. Because I'm going to be very cold tonight. All right, guys. I think that does it for us, the Her Hoop Stats team here in Minnesota. We will be bringing you a lot more content as the weekend progresses. So we will be back tomorrow night after the games to recap everything that happened. So keep it locked right here on Her Hoop Stats on the YouTube channel, on Twitter, on Instagram, anywhere you can find us. Just Google it. Bye.